We've brought you the news live during this hour of Australia intervening at the request of Solomon Islands government in Solomon Islands to try and help restore safety and security in that country after 2 days of rioting in the capital, Honiara. 23 Australian federal police are on their way as we speak. 50 more will join them shortly, and 43 ADF personnel will also be leaving Townsville for Solomon Islands. Here's some of what the Prime Minister had to say less than an hour ago.
Our purpose here is to provide stability and security. It is not the Australian government's intention in any way to intervene in the internal affairs of the Solomon Islands. That is for them to resolve. I've made that very clear. Our presence there does not indicate any position on the internal issues of the Solomon Islands.
As I mentioned previously, Australian defence and police personnel spent more than a decade in Solomon Islands from 2003 restoring order. So we're back there again now to try and help out our Pacific neighbours. I'm joined now by the Minister for International Development and the Pacific, Zed Seselja. Thanks for joining us, Zed, after this,
Thanks, Chris.
Just straight after this announcement. Can you tell us first up what you believe is behind the rioting in Honiara?
Well, look, obviously that's not 100% clear, but obviously there is a degree of unrest and a number of factors, we believe, have led to that. And what our, of course, priority in responding to this request, and this request has come under a 2017 bilateral security treaty. So in responding to this request, it is about stability and security in the Solomon Islands and supporting that and supporting the people of the Solomon Islands in dealing with this. So obviously there's a range of factors when you do see this kind of unrest. Of course, there are political factors and others, but it's not for us to be judging, I guess, that internal political debate or the other factors that might have led to it. It's about supporting our neighbours, our friends in the region during this difficult time.
Sure, but you do need to know what your task is there, and you will need to know who you're looking to protect. In the past, unrest in Solomon Islands has actually been created by ethnic divisions within the islanders, different island communities. There is some reporting here suggesting that this is directed at Chinese communities in Honiara. Is that a factor?
Well, look, as I say, there are a range of factors we're dealing with. In some cases, of course, when you see issues around unrest, there are issues about, issues around poverty and social dislocation, and of course there are political factors, and clearly there are political tensions at the moment. And so our job, of course, in part with our post on the ground, but with the personnel we're sending, which includes not just the AFP personnel and the ADF, but also additional DFAT personnel, is to continue to get more real-time information on the ground and assess the situation. So obviously we'll be in a better position to assess that once some of those personnel are on the ground.
There will be Australian businesses and indeed Australian families there. What's the latest word from your High Commissioner in Honiara? Are there Australians in danger?
Well, certainly there are a number of Australian businesses and we're seeking to get a handle of that. We have had obviously some reports of unrest near Australian businesses and concerns around those businesses. We've had no reports about any, obviously, Australians who have been harmed in any way. And obviously we want to make sure that as our personnel are there, that they are protecting peace and security there in the Solomon Islands. And of course that includes Australian citizens.
All right, now the Prime Minister said, I would have thought rather ambitiously in his press conference, that this operation might only last weeks. Now, I was working for the Foreign Minister during the time of the Ramsey intervention in 2003, and that went right through to 2017. It outlived the Howard government, of course, and that was a very successful operation. Wouldn't you need to be now talking to New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, obviously Solomon Islands and other Pacific countries to look at getting other nations involved so you might have some sort of multinational presence there into the medium term?
Well, Chris, the first thing is I wouldn't be comparing this situation to what happened with the intervention with Ramsey. We don't assess it in that way in terms of seriousness. It obviously is concerning. We have reached out to our partners in the region. The Prime Minister has been on the phone. The Foreign Minister will, of course, be reaching out to Pacific Island counterparts as well, and obviously having those discussions. But I don't think we would be preempting that kind of response, and I don't think we should be comparing this situation to that. But obviously it's concerning enough for us to respond to this request.
Well, Minister, thanks for joining us hot on the heels of that news today. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Chris.
That is the Minister for International Development and the Pacific, Zed Seselja, there joining us on the back of that announcement. As we speak, Australian Federal Police are en route to Honiara. They'll be joined by more police tomorrow, and overnight 43 ADF personnel. So Godspeed to those Australians who are going to do their nation proud and to help our Pacific neighbours.